Alright, what's up? It's Keith. It's plugged on. Let me fix there. There we go. That's better. Yeah, I'm reviewing another episode of Teen Wolf. So, this week's episode is episode 617, Werewolves of London. Yeah, this is the fourth to last episode, and that's a weird way of saying it. I was trying to think of another way to put it. But there's a lot of character returns in this episode, and I feel like this was the episode where things kind of start to look like they're going to head a little bit forward, which I know a lot of people are complaining that this season of Teen Wolf is moving slow. But no offense, every season of Teen Wolf generally, nothing really truly mind-boggling and big happens until the last two episodes. And that's exactly how I feel this season's going to be. Maybe the last three, because they're grouping up 18 and 19 next week. But I feel like, it's just a big setup thing. So, as the title goes, Werewolves of London, the episode opens up with the clip that they put out like 2 weeks ago of Ethan and Jackson in London. So it's their anniversary, and Ethan's waiting for Jackson to show up so they can go out to have plans. But Jackson's late, and then it's shown that he's been captured by hunters, who then shoot Ethan with wolf's bane, and they try to ask him where werewolves are, but they miscalculated the fact that Jackson isn't only part werewolf, he's part Kanima. And he breaks free, and they manage to subdue and knock out both of them. And then later on in the episode, they tie him up, and they start asking him questions about why are you hunting werewolves in London, and whether or not Gerard means anything. And eventually, after this, they determine, okay, we got to go back to Beacon Hills if we're going to try to stop this from happening. And I'll cover the end of their part of the episode a little bit later. And I have a couple other things that I want to talk about once I'm done talking about the episode. But so, jump back into the main portion of the episode, where Scott's in the waiting room at the hospital. Malia's there with him to kind of provide emotional support because his mom's in surgery. It was kind of easy to figure out that Melissa was the one who got shot. I mean, there's the clips of her in the trailer being like in the hospital and not looking very well. And they put this clip out earlier in the week. So it was fairly obvious that it was her. But eventually they get the bullet out and they say that she's going to be fine for now. Who knows? It could turn for the worse later. But Scott goes in and he has a very nice, very touching moment with Melissa where she tells him that despite all this, it's not his fault. Don't run, fight. And then he eventually leaves and he goes to check in another room, but he finds it empty. When he asks Sheriff about it, it's kind of revealed that basically everybody who wasn't a supernatural got shot last episode. And it wasn't just Melissa. His dad got shot, but he got transferred to San Francisco Memorial Hospital, and that's the room he was looking in on. Mason's just got out of surgery. Lydia was shot as well. They're all in the hospital, and so Scott's kind of like reached a new low in some point. It's in some parts. So then when he later meets up again with Malia, he's like, okay, we're done hiding. We're gonna fight. We need an army. And so then they go out and start trying to recruit. In which again, I'll get back to that, and I'll try to do all of that in one section. But some of the other major parts that happen is there's Sheriff Stilinski calls Monroe to the sheriff's station. He starts to try to rattle her faith in Gerard by telling her like, oh yeah, Gerard strangled Matt, and so that he could control the Kanima. He killed his own men with a bat that's covered in like werewolf claws to try to incite a war between werewolves and hunters. He withheld information on how to kill the beast, so that he could claim the victory of killing it himself. And he goes, he's going to turn on you. But then Monroe turns around and she says, yeah, well, you told me that it was a bear attack. You're protecting them. You're choosing them over us. And also brings up the fact that, which has been like a recurring thing, it hasn't been as much of a thing lately, but like, there's just a lot of death, and there's not a clean way to solve it because of all the supernatural stuff. So eventually they get tired of talking, and he tells her to get out of his sheriff's station, but it turns out Monroe has turned basically all the deputies against him, and he's the one that's forced to leave, but not without saying that Gerard's never going to beat Scott. Elsewhere, Liam confronts Gabe in the locker room and shoves his head into the mirror and is basically interrogating him about who shot up Scott's house, which Gabe claims to not have anything, but then like Liam's pushing his head against the mirror so hard that it's starting to crack, and Liam's like, oh yeah, I'm losing control. I might just kill you. But Theo, somehow, is there to try to talk him out of it. But then when Gabe brings up the fact that there's more bodies. They shove him back into the mirror, and it's revealed that there are a bunch of other bodies, kind of that are like that they found. They're bodies that are being tested, and Theo and Liam realize that it's the Anukete, that they're looking for a host, and that Gabe and the people at school testing everybody, they're just helping him out, and they're kind of not happy with him. And then in the later scene, Gabe and Nolan are in the locker room, and Gabe reveals that it was him. It was his idea to shoot up Scott's house, but he told Monroe that it was Nolan so that Nolan wouldn't die. And it kind of causes this, like, almost like this rift between them, because, you know, at least lately, it's looking like Nolan isn't really all about the violence. Now that he's looked the horse in the mouth, he doesn't really want to be a part of this all that much, or he's not all about this anymore. So that's going to be an interesting dynamic to kind of go through with the last bit of episodes. But then the main thing that happens is Scott and Malia trying to recruit other people. So first they try Deucalion, because Deucalion is very familiar with Gerard. But Deucalion he doesn't want to do it anymore. He is a pacifist now, and he says, like, I don't want to fight, mostly because, not because I might lose my eyes again, but he feels like I might lose my soul again. But he does offer guidance, and he says, you're going to have to lower your standards. And they're like, I thought I already did. And he goes, worse than me. And also during that sequence, there's a cool, somewhat fight scene between him and Malia, where he does, I think it's Pagua, where he's basically making Malia beat herself by just not fighting her. And he's the new pacifist Deucalion, which is a cool thing. I think that's a cool character development for him, in the sense that he's grown. Like he's not like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go kill Gerard. It's like, he was like, I still think he was the best bad guy, one of the best bad guys that Teen Wolf has ever had. And he doesn't want to go back down that road again. So I can kind of see that. I don't see that lasting forever. I could see him either dying, he could probably easily die, or, like, again, joining the fight for whatever reason eventually. So that doesn't work. So they go to try to convince Peter, who they rendezvous with at Eichenhaus. But Peter's like, I'm not doing this. There's nothing in it for me. I can just run by myself. And he uses a hunter that he managed to capture as evidence. And he's locked up in one of the closed unit rooms in Eichenhaus, and he slides him a magazine that has, you know, a gun. And so the guy just, like, even though he's in, like, a relatively bullet-resistant room, he's just trying to mow them down. And then eventually he breaks through and he tries to fight Scott, but it doesn't work out. Scott knocks him out, but then Peter's like, yeah, I don't need to do this. But then later on, Malia tries to reach out to Peter, and she's like, hey, there's something else going on. And so she has him put his claws on her neck, and he sees the fear, the overwhelming fear that they're feeling everywhere. And he's like, still, you can't outrun this. Like, you can't beat this. And so he's like, I'm going to run away. And there's an interesting moment between them where Malia's like, yeah, run back to your car. It's the only thing you cared about. And he says, one of them was for you. And Malia goes, I don't want your cars. And he just kind of goes off. So finally, Malia's like, well, there's this pack called the Primal Pack, who basically sacrifice their humanity in order to reach their full potential. And even though these werewolves are, like, probably killers, like, we need an army. So Scott and her go out to where they are, but then they're kind of overwhelmed with fear from the Anukete. When they go in, they find more bodies like that. They also find Lydia, whom has had visions at the hospital, where where the hospital's frozen over, like even covered in snow, but she ends up in the morgue and into what I assume is Hallwin's, where his body's being stored, and it's like super hot. And she's like, oh yeah, Hallwin's leading me to where I'm supposed to go. And they find another skinless body, like the one that the sheriff and Melissa were terrified of. And so it's like, oh, it's the other half of the Anukete. So now it's got to be a werewolf. So now they understand that they're trying to find the other half. So when they rendezvous with Liam and Theo at the school, they're trying to come up with a plan, and we know it's a werewolf. And then Peter finally shows up, and Peter's like, all right, I'm going to help. But then when he gets in the car with Malia, she's like, okay, there's something else. I know you're lying. You know, what in my head made you scared? And then he sees a lot of the moments between Scott and Malia over season 6, you know, from their fight with against the Ghost Riders, where they're almost taken, you know, before Peter comes and saves them in 608, to Malia taking Scott's pain in episode 13, to them, you know, slowly running out of air in the last episode, and then them kissing. So it's basically implied that her and Scott's, like, feelings for each other was enough touched him enough to want to save her, and he looks at Scott as Scott climbs into Roscoe the Jeep, and he goes, he's going to get himself killed. And he says, don't fall in love with a dead man, and Malia says, too late. So, yeah, that's a lot of big, heavy stuff put into a nice thing, but I thought that was a nice moment. Like, there's a lot of nice Peter Malia moments in this episode. And then the episode ends with Ethan and Jackson showing up at the high school, and they ask Monroe for Scott McCall, not knowing that she's a hunter, and then they're both captured and tied up, and they're asking questions, and they're trying to figure out what Gerard is up to, but it doesn't really end well, and it kind of ends with them. So, yeah, that was episode 617, Werewolves of London. So next week there's 2 episodes. It's 18 and 19, Shattered Glass and Genotype. I forget which one is which. I think Genotype is 18 and Shattered Glass is 19. I could have them backwards, but it looks like the Anukite is both halves are gonna come together within the next 2 episodes, which could be interesting. But this episode was good. Like, I liked, again, this moment between Scott and Melissa was really good. I like again, they're not shoving, like the Scott and Malia thing, like they kissed last episode, but it's not like, yeah, now they're going to be, kind of like how Scott and Allison was, where it was like every episode we just need to hammer in that, yeah, they're together. I like that it's a little bit more subtle, but I like how there's the cool moments between Peter and Malia, where like Peter, it seems like he doesn't really know how to be a father, so he's like, here, I got you a car, but Malia doesn't want the car, but then he's like, I'm going to try to help you save the guy you love. I don't know if she's gotten that far yet. She might have. And I like that there's like some cool moments between them. And it's like stuff like that. The whole Liam and Theo relationship is interesting because Theo keeps trying to save Liam from killing people. And I guess it might be part of Theo's redemption arc. You know, I'm not usually one for these kind of speculations, but like I know a lot of people for Teen Wolf fans, it seems like whenever 2 male characters have good scenes together, they're like, oh my god, these 2 people should get together. I wonder if that's actually happening, because I honestly can't come up with too much of another reason as to why this could happen. I mean, besides maybe just a pure redemption arc, but that might actually be a little bit boring. Yeah. I know some people are upset that Jackson is still part Kanema, that he just didn't become a werewolf, but that makes sense. You know, one of the things that Deaton said in 5B is that energy doesn't disappear, that maybe that's a part of him. You know, maybe almost like a penance, that like this was a part of you for a while. It's something you're going to have to live with, and I kind of like that. And also makes him different. That's the one problem with maybe having a show like this, is that like what real difference is there between one werewolf to the next? Like you have Malia, who's a werecoyote, which except for Edgar from the last episode, there's not really been other werecoyotes. You know, she's unique. You have Scott, who's a true alpha. That's unique. Liam is Scott's only beta, so that's unique. But, like, you know what I mean? Like, after a while, it's just, yeah, he's a werewolf. There's nothing special. And I like that they're making him somewhat special. So, yeah, so next week's 2 episodes, so I'll probably split the video up again. And then the finale I plan on doing on the main channel. I also plan on doing a ranking of all the seasons of Teen Wolf. And then I also might do a video. I might go on the main Plugged On channel. I might go on here. I want to do a video where I give 10 things that I think would improve Teen Wolf in general. This is just, you know, from a speculative standpoint, of the 10 things that I think would help improve the show, and that could be specific seasons, just making arcs better, all kinds of stuff. But, yeah. But the only thing that I hope is that, I wanted to point this out too, because it's a scene, I hope that because supposedly there's a scene in the second to last episode that's a Scott and Lydia scene, and I feel like that needs to be a big scene, because they're the only 2 characters who've been through the entirety of the show. So I feel like having a moment where they're like, yeah, we've been through so much, could be just a great, you know, sort of towards the end send-off for Teen Wolf. I also think that, I think that an even better moment would be Scott, like, saying, like, hey, if I don't make it, the pack is yours. Like, this is your pack then. You know what I mean? Like almost like he's trusting her. I mean, because, like, that's maybe my one criticism, is that there's been a lot of Scott and Malia focus, and I get it, that like since you want to build up Scott and Malia and make it a thing, you want to have them doing stuff together. But at the same time, it's like we haven't really gotten all that much in terms of like Scott and Lydia moments. So I just hope that they can make that moment a big deal and have this show end on a rather large note. So yeah, I'll see you next week for 2 videos, and then on the other channel for the main thing for the series finale. And yeah, thank you for watching, and goodbye.